Hello again, my little Volksgrenadiers, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing another Bolt Action 3rd edition unit review. And recently, we have been deep diving iconic German tanks, and I see no reason to change that. So let's take a look at the big one. Yeah, you know which one. Let's look at the Tigers. Not just one, but both. Tiger tanks had a bit of a meme reputation in the previous edition of Bolt Action, but Warlord has taken some pretty good steps to try and make them not only look good, but actually pretty viable on the tabletop. So let's see if they succeeded. Without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, and dive right into this thing. Now, today's episode is going to be a double doozy, with us looking at both the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2. As is tradition, we're going to start off by talking about the Tigers at a high level, their general pros and cons, and how you want to be thinking about them when putting them in your list. Firstly, these things are elite units, and that comes with its own set of pros and cons. On the one hand, you will likely be fielding the heaviest and highest quality tank on the battlefield if you choose to include a Tiger in your list. The combination of armor and incredible firepower really does make these things at the top of the food chain, especially when it comes to tank versus tank battles. Sure, there might be specialist tank hunters or variants of Shermans that might be able to match you in terms of gun, but they won't then be able to match you in terms of anti-infantry firepower with your machine guns and also your durability. If something like a Wolverine shoots at a Tiger, it has a good chance of maybe damaging it. But if the Tiger gets a successful hit against an Armor 7 or Armor 8 tank destroyer, then unless it's got a cover save, that thing is pretty much toast. They are incredibly high value assets, but of course that does come with some disadvantages. Firstly, you are going to be paying for that quality. Your price of these things is likely to be double, if not triple, that of things like the Panzer III. It is possible to get nearly 3 regular Panzer IIIs with the light tank variant with the medium anti-tank gun for the same price as one Tiger II. Now that is a little bit of an extreme example, but it does highlight what we're talking about here. These things are expensive. Now you could argue that the Tiger II in a straight up fight and given enough time on the tabletop would be able to easily destroy those 3 Panzer IIIs. But what you have to remember is there's only a limited amount of turns, and those 3 Panzer IIIs might be able to achieve more over the course of a game than a single Tiger II. On the other hand, if your opponent isn't ready for a Tiger II, they might just not be able to deal with it. Some armies out there will deal with low-level tanks, light medium tanks, all that kind of stuff. They'll deal with those day in, day out. But a heavy or super heavy tank turns up. If you just don't have the equipment to deal with it, it doesn't matter if there's only one of them. It's going to wreak havoc because it doesn't have to sit back and shoot at you. It can start getting in your face, getting in point blank. If you just can't deal with it, if you just can't physically damage it, it is a nightmare. However, I know we're back and forth in a little bit here. It's a high quality tank, which means if your opponent can't deal with it, it can be a problem. But if the opponent can deal with it, the script flips straight away. The tables turn. And you can have a very expensive unit that feels a little impotent if it's having to skulk around and hide because your opponent has brought what it needs to deal with this thing. And don't forget, we all roll on the same vehicle damage table. So if someone does manage to get a shot through, even a glancing hit, a lucky 6 and being set on fire could see the end of your very expensive tank. Couple of quick real world factors that I think need to be taken into account as well. These are plastic kits that are easily available. It's not resin, it's not metal. You can get these things from Warlord Games, for example. And as someone who has personally built both a Tiger 1 and a Tiger 2, I really enjoyed the experience. You also tend to find them not only available from Warlord Games, but you find them from discount third-party retail as well, like Element Games, so you can get them at a great price. That just about covers the high-level, broad brush pros and cons of the Tigers, but let's get down into the nitty-gritty, because it's easy to lump these two vehicles together. But the reality is that I think they are two very different beasts on the tabletop, and they have two very different playstyles and viabilities. Now, just to mix things up, I actually want to start off in reverse order and starting with the Tiger 2. One of the reasons for this is I think the way the Tiger 2 operates is going to be in a very traditional manner in terms of bolt action. This thing is one of the biggest and more expensive tanks that you can field in bolt action. At regular, it comes in at 440 points, and at veteran, it is an eye-watering 528 points. Now, you might actually consider taking it veteran because it can be a Panzer Ace, but in my personal opinion, that is far too many points, and I really don't feel like the Tiger 2 benefits from being a Panzer Ace in comparison to something like a Stug. You're already armed with a super heavy anti-tank gun. There's a very, very strong chance that you're going to be penning enemy vehicles no problem whatsoever, and probably double penning and getting to roll twice on the vehicle damage table. However, if this is the only vehicle in your army and you're willing to pay for veteran, then maybe Panzer Ace is a good choice. But there is always a concept of, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. If you're going to take one of these things, you might as well go all in. Yes, but I do think that there is such a thing as going too far. Frankly, a 528 point unit, which can be one shot popped by a lucky enemy round, just does not appeal to me. 440 points, you're getting exactly the same damage output, you're getting exactly the same armor capabilities, you're just slightly less on leadership, which really doesn't matter if you've got an officer nearby and you're not eligible for Panzer Ace, which, like we said, we don't really need it. Now, taken at regular, 444 points is expensive, but it's not prohibitively expensive. In a normal game of 1,250 points of bolt action, I do find myself fairly consistently spending between 500 and 600 points on armor. Granted, I'm normally spending that on 2 Matilda 2s or 2 or 3 Matilda 2s, like 155 point tanks, or I'm taking a couple of T-34s with a BA-6 supporting them, or a couple of Shermans with a Greyhound supporting them, or in the case of my Germans, a couple of Panzer IIIs with a Marder. But I do tend to find myself spending about 400, but more like 400 to 500 points on armor. So just having this eat up the majority of my armor allocation and maybe putting in a cheap second tank is absolutely viable and does leave enough points left over for you to actually bring the rest of your list without having to cut corners. So it is possible to include a Tiger 2 in your list without it negatively impacting the rest of your army, but in terms of your armor, you are essentially going to have all of your eggs in one basket. But what is the best way of using this thing on the tabletop? Well, in my mind, it comes down to two main tactics. The first one is rather traditional. It's an expensive tank, but it has good firepower. So what you do is you essentially screen it with lots of infantry. The infantry is sort of pushing forward onto objectives, getting up close, doing a lot of the grunt work. And whenever there's a particularly tough nut that needs to be cracked, whether it's a vehicle that your infantry can't deal with or just some big sort of blob of veteran infantry, you can just start slinging super heavy anti-tank rounds into it, spraying it down with some machine guns, and that should hopefully clear that blockage, and then your infantry can start pushing forward again. A traditional long-range fire support unit. The other way is to really bully your opponent with this. When you've got a high-value unit, the instinct can be, I must protect it. I must protect it. It must be protected at all costs. But if you're a bit timid with the Tiger 2, you can sometimes overlook its greatest advantage, which is you can just bully your opponent with it. If they don't have enough anti-tank on a particular flank, just go ham. Just get it in there. Get it stuck in. If they haven't got a flamethrower or anything else you need to worry about, and they physically can't penetrate its front armor with their weapons, even if you get within half range, like, what the hell's a light anti-tank going to do to this thing? Just get stuck in. Get in point blank range. Because one of the issues with a vehicle like the Tiger 2 is that it's still only hitting on a 4. It's only hitting on a 4 most of the time. If you move, it's then going to be hitting on a 5. Oh, well, 440 points to miss with its main gun. You don't want that. Get it in point blank. If there's no threat to it, don't pussyfoot around with it. Get in point blank. Because let me tell you, if you're in point blank, the enemy doesn't get the advantage of being down. They'll get the regular cover, but they don't get the advantage of going down. So you can just slam those shells into them and just really start messing with them. So either, if you think that there are quite a few threats to it, use it as a fire support unit. Use it to clear those blockages. If you think, hey, on that left flank, there's not much that could really deal with this thing, get it down on that flank and get it bullying. Now let's move on to the Tiger 1. This is a very different beast. In 2nd edition, both the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2 were so mind-bogglingly expensive, and the fact that we were playing at 1,000-point games, and the fact that typically you only got one tank in your army, it was treated essentially the same way as the Tiger 2. It was like a budget Tiger 2. Oh, it's not quite as expensive. It's still very expensive, but it's not quite as expensive, so I can sort of take this and still get just about everything else that I need in this. Maybe cut a few corners. That was 2nd edition. We are now in 3rd edition. In my opinion, things are very, very different indeed. Firstly, Tigers are now significantly cheaper. 330 points for a regular Tiger. That is well within acceptable parameters. Even if you just took one of them, you'd still have enough points left over for another tank. You could fit in to that sort of 400 to 600 point area that we talked about in terms of how much you like to spend on armor in your list. Well, that's how I like to spend on armor in my list anyway, and still having enough points left over for everything else. You could fit one of these in there and have between about 170 points, if not 270 points left over for the rest of your armor. It's plenty. You get a Tiger 1, maybe a low level Panzer 3, or some sort of Stug, and maybe a Lux in there as well. There's plenty. You can fit a Tiger 1 and have other tanks now. That's a really big deal. It's expensive, but it's not shutting out the rest of your armored force like the Tiger 2 typically is. Of course, that is looking at it through the lens of regular. If you were to take it as veteran, then I think it would start moving into Tiger 2 territory in terms of it's basically eating up most of your armored force, and you might have one or two very light vehicles supporting it. But at 330 points, taking a Tiger and having other tanks supporting it is actually a dilemma for your opponent. Remember, you want to create dilemmas, not problems. Problems have solutions. Dilemmas have no good option. Does your opponent go after the lighter vehicles, the normal, mediums and light vehicles in your armored fleet, and then leave the Tiger 1 to free reign? I wouldn't want to leave a super heavy anti-tank gun to its own devices. Or do they try and deal with the Tiger, maybe try and kick that leg out from underneath you? But if they fail to do so with its still impressive armor 10 plus, are they ending up with taking even more firepower as the now unmolested lighter tanks plus the Tiger are piling onto them? In essence, how I see the Tiger 1 now, you just use it as you would any other tank. It's cheap enough. It's not cheap, but it's cheap enough, or should we say, it's not expensive enough to have to really worry about it too much. And you know what's kind of crazy? And I have been on the receiving end of a list like this, and it was wild. Double Tiger 1, I think, is a thing. I very much think it is a thing. My opponent I did manage to beat the double Tiger list, but it's my first time my opponent was using it. And I did get very lucky with that the side shot. But the issue with my opponent's list was not that he had double tiger, was the fact that he was trying to run, I think, multiple memes at once. We had double tiger, then he had like double neb, then all his infantry were like inexperienced bastards running around. That, I think, is maybe trying to have memes upon memes. If I was to run a double tiger list, I would simply run 2 tigers. And then I would take a very normal rest of German list. I'd have some a couple of medium mortars, and then I would focus on to cover my HEM indirect fire, and then I would just focus on just having the classic, well-equipped, well-trained German squads running around. And I think if you did that, you would end up with a well-rounded army with quite a sting in its tail and a bit of a conundrum for your opponent, because at the moment a lot of the meta does seem to be around lighter vehicles. If people are preparing for lighter vehicles, if people are really relying upon medium anti-tank guns to get medium or even lighter anti-tank guns to deal with most of the threats they come across, they're really not going to be happy if you plop down 2 heavy tanks. 2 heavy tanks with superior tank guns. I've been thinking, it's a little side note here, but I've been thinking along similar lines with Churchills with my Brits. I think double Churchill, double heavy tank is very possible now. And it just seems at the moment people aren't really doing it. But that doesn't mean it's bad. I just think a lot of people still see these units in their traditional light. Too expensive. You know, only ever fielding 1 of them. Maybe that's still true for the Tiger 2. But for the Tiger 1, I think double Tiger is viable. But I think taking a Tiger and a couple of smaller vehicles is actually desirable. Maybe not cutting edge meta, but for the everyman on the street, playing in his local fun tournaments or just playing against his mates, being the guy that turns up with double Tiger would definitely be a fun challenge for your mates and for your regular opponents to deal with. And also, you could be double Tiger guy. Very quick final point here, referring to both the Tiger 1 and the Tiger 2. I haven't really touched upon the pintle-mounted MMGs. In previous editions, I actually liked the pintle-mounted MMGs because you could only really have 1 Tiger, so it was a little bit of a in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing. Now I'm not sure that I would bother with them due to the fact that MMGs aren't anywhere near as good as they were on vehicles. I think that I'd probably leave these at home unless you had like 30 points left over and the choice was between like maybe a light mortar and this. Maybe I'd go for the MMGs then, but I'd probably still go for the light mortar because an extra dice in the bag. That is the one thing that does need to be second final point that needs to be touched upon. Taking one of these things and still getting, I would say, a minimum of 13 or 14 dice in the list is probably where the real challenge lies, especially if you're looking at the double Tiger route. So, in summary, the Tiger 2 still operates very much as it did in 2nd edition and how you'd expect it to. All of your eggs in one basket. It's a hell of a basket, but it's a hell of a risk. And if it goes down, it will leave a big hole in your army. The Tiger 1, you can be a little bit more ballsy with. You can treat it a bit more casually. It can still be essentially seen as a main tank, just a frontline vehicle, doing what you would do with your Shermans and your Panzer IVs and stuff, because whilst it's expensive, it's not shutting out the rest of your armor core, and even if you end up taking 2 of them, you are not prohibiting the rest of your list from having everything that it needs. You can get double Tiger or a Tiger and a couple of tank destroyers and still have enough points left over for your indirect fire like mortars and for your infantry. Well, at least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you think that Tigers are still a bit too expensive and maybe this is more of a dream? Or do you think, especially with the Tiger 1, that there's something there in taking multiple of them or taking them and supporting them with some very capable lighter armor like a Panzer III or some Marders? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, R.J., Scorpion, Bonbonvert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock the Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.